to the Soul Mirror, where we reflect the truth we often forget lives within us. I'm your host, Shreya, and today we are joined by the radiant Kimberly Braun, a former monastic nun turned spiritual teacher who has lived and breathes the art of emergence and soul awakening. With her playful wisdom and deep insight into the human spirit, Kimberly reminds us that freedom isn't a destination, it's our essence remembered. So, welcome, Kimberly. I'm honored to have you on my show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And, Kimberly, your life has been an unfolding of deep spiritual realization. So, how did that word awakening mean to you at the start of your journey, and how has that evolved?
Yeah, that's such a great question. My earliest illuminative experiences happened when I was consciously, when I was 5 or 6 years old. And it happened through three different ways. It happened through nature, through ritual, and through family events. And I remember especially significant ones that happened in nature. And when those happened, there was a sense of merging with all things. And I don't believe at that time that my mind went to that it said, oh, I'm merging with this tree or I'm merging with this leaf. But rather, when life opened up to me through an experience of a leaf or a tree, I was taken into very deep states of bliss. And I realized that all this life is only about that. It's all about just awakening, period. That's it. It's about that. And so that takeaway has not changed, but my language around it has changed. I would say that now, as I continue to grow, I'm 58 now. As I continue to grow, I'm aware that when I have an illumination happen with something outside of me, that it's actually happening within me. And what happened back then when I was 5 or 6 was that when I had this experience with the leaf, I understood that the leaf was in God and God was in the leaf, that there really was no death in a lasting sense. And when that happened, I realized that I was in God and God was in me. And so there was a translation of the experience into my own life personally. So there was an understanding of that grasping. But now it's more like it's happening to both simultaneously, and there's not a translation of it happening. There's a knowingness and a grasping of it. Also, whereas before my language around it had a bit of a construct, I was Catholic, and so my language had a personal God, and I loved Jesus, and that, which was beautiful formation for me. Those still exist, but they exist in a different way for me. So my belief system, the awakening process has been very similar all along the way, but my belief system around it continues to work and change. So I would say that finalized and contained beliefs continue to dissolve into a more unified understanding of things.
Yes, yes, that's so beautiful. And thank you for sharing your story with our listeners. And how can someone tell the difference between a true inner awakening and just another self help high?
Well, you're making the comparison between something that's uh, essential and something that's more superficial. Is that what I'm hearing here? So self-help techniques are geared towards that awakening. So some self-help techniques are helpful in that process. But the difference between, I would say, an awakening that is truly essential and a passing inspiration is really the fruit. First, when you retell the story, so when I retell the stories, even from when I was 5, that's 53 years ago now, I still get lit up by it. It's still alive within my body and my mind. There's something that has a timeless quality to it. And there's also a continual revealing and understanding and knowing that happens from it as well. So lasting experiences stay fresh and never grow old. Whereas more passing inspirations, like let's say you read a self-help book and you're jazzed about it, like, oh my God, this is changing my life and that. And then you forget all about what you read a week later. That itself tells you that it's a passing inspiration. And what it evoked within you uh, was momentary, maybe real, maybe
Mhm.
true, maybe have value, but it was more situational and less eternal.
Yes, yes. And that difference between the ego motivation and soul initiation, it's very subtle but so powerful that when we often finally sense it. And also, you speak often about spirit as realization, not accusation. How do we begin to trust in that inner knowing when life feels chaotic or uncertain?
Mhm. Mm. Well, uh, in all honesty, it's not a pat answer because it takes everything that we are and we grow in the ability to trust. We assume that trust is like a light switch that you turn on and off. I'm going to trust, and we can kind of push our way into it. And we discover that trusting the process or trusting ourselves or trusting spirit is more all consuming than what it appears to be. And with that, we then move away from this big idea that I just need to trust. And we look into the moment. How can I surrender to this moment? Because in the moment contains everything that we are and everything that we need. And what happens is we begin to trust more and more without even realizing it. So I think more of the goal is to recognize the beauty of what's happening there moment by moment by moment. So it's a little reflection on it.
Yes, yes, that's so beautiful, and you just explained it so beautifully. And also, was there a moment in your own life where trust felt like a radical act?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Lots of little ones. The little ones, I think, were the bigger ones. So in my latest book, I talk about building a monastery with no experience and no money. That was radical trust. That was radical trust. But I was so inspired, it didn't feel like trust. I'd come to such a place of surrender that for me, I felt like more like a witness. But I'll return to that story because there were moments that tried me deeply. I want to speak more to the small moments. I remember when I was 19 and I was working as a waitress with catering. And like many of us, especially many of us women, if things got tough, like I would emotionally eat a little bit. We all do. Oh, we have a rough day, so we get an ice cream or something that was a bit more part of my life. It isn't
Yeah.
so now. And I remember I had had a really hard day. And here I was at the restaurant all alone. And I'm like, I'm going to go in and get a piece of cake. Like, just, and I walked into the cooler to get a piece of cake. And I was like, this isn't helping me.
Yeah.
But I really wanted it. I wanted the serotonin release and the beta endorphin, whatever it is that's released when you
Yeah.
have some sugar at that age. And a moment of pause, and I'm like, I don't need to do this. But it was hard. It took this sounds so little, but it took every ounce of me to say, I'm just going to walk out of here and shut the door. And I left the cooler, didn't have the piece of cake, and I didn't have the reward of great satisfaction. I was in the emptiness of
Mhm.
the longing for something emotional to support me in the rough day that I had had. And sometimes when we step into trust, we want an immediate gratification for that trust. And then we have suffering because it doesn't come, and we don't stay with it. We don't stay with the emptiness.
Yeah.
And I think that's bigger than the stories I could tell you about the monastery, because we all go through those kinds of things. So the trust
Mm.
has stages, right? You get the initial trust. So using the cake example, which is so easy to relate to, and it can relate to anything in our lives. It can relate to a snarky comment to a coworker. Like, it could relate to anything. You have the moment of trust where you go, oh, I need to surrender. This is not helping me. But then you have the trust of staying the course. And the staying the course is being okay in the emptiness, is staying with the discomfort of your cup feeling empty when you long for your cup to be full. So that's radical trust. And that's a radical trust that every human being is called to. And any human being that you might admire as being somewhat holy or self-realized, that Gandhi's a great example. Gandhi, no doubt, went through things like that. There's no human being escapes that emptiness. And to know that you're not alone in it, and in a way, you're entering the league of those that say yes to self-realization. That's radical. That's radical trust. Stepping into the unknown when you don't know what's going to come at the end of it. So now with the big project, with the monastery project, I was in the flow and it was largely satisfying. But there were challenges along the way. And the challenges that came was because people with various kinds of power were suspicious, and they made life really hard for me. You know, in my mind, I was like, why isn't everybody rejoicing? This is so awesome. Why am I being put down and held in suspicion and called to task when it's so clear this is an amazing miracle that they're called to be a part of? And I was new in that understanding that that challenge is inevitable. Whenever we give a big yes to life, that yes is a light in the world. That light is going to shine all around you. And where light matches light, there will be rejoicing. And where light meets with shroudedness or darkness or ignorance or fear, there will be unexpected outcomes such as doubt, suspicion, oppression, and the rest. And that too takes trust. It took a lot of trust for me to be true to my truth when I wasn't supported by those I hoped for around me.
Yes, yes, that age between surrender and control, that's where I think the true presence often waits. And also your energy carries both lightness and depth. So how do you, yes, definitely. So how do you keep joy and play woven into that spiritual path, especially when confronting life's shadow?
Well, um, for me, my life has only been about this. So I'm seasoned in nothing else matters.
Mm.
Doesn't mean I'm not still on the path of healing and transformation, but that we have these momentous times in our life when we are hit with the reality of what is this life about. We all have them. Either we stay with that or we sink back into uh, societal norms, or it gets pushed away under stress. Keeping what matters before you in a way that is vital and life-giving are where your questions need to be. So your question, if you're listening and you were asking me what you just asked me, your question isn't so much, what do I do? How do I work with this problem? Your question is, how do I stay aligned with spirit? how do I remember the one thing necessary in life? How do I keep around that flame? And then all the other life circumstances are secondary questions that the primary light can shine upon it. So if you find that life is heavy, that you struggle with joy, that if you can back up to the most important questions around life and stay there to keep it very simple, you'll find slowly but surely your life will be penetrated with that
Yeah. Yes, that's so beautiful. I think you just say that so beautifully.
joy.
And can healing ever be lighthearted or does that minimize pain?
Could you say that again? Can healing?
Yes, yes. Can healing ever be like lighthearted or does that minimize the pain?
Oh, minimize the pain. That's right. Yeah, minimize. Healing moments, I believe, this is very nuanced, are always light because when we move through the pain of our wounds, when we truly are honest, what happens is we meet ourselves. And in that authenticity, there is the quality of presence. And presence is at the same time all consuming and penetrating and completely light. So let's say I've gone through some great loss recently. And with loss, there goes heavy grief, right? You have big grief. Facing that grief, going right into the heart of it, there's a certain lightness that happens by going right into the heart of it. And where things become heavy is usually when we're trying to overanalyze it, control it, like you said, work it out, hold it at bay, resist it, compartmentalize it, work it out. And this whole panorama of things that we do to manage the process are the management's what is what makes it heavy. The pain itself is actually, when we face it directly, like a flowing river. Think about a river that's rushing. Our pain can be like that rushing river. It's intense, but it doesn't have to be heavy.
Yes, yes. And I think sometimes the most sacred laughter is born on the other side of tears only.
Oh,
And
yes, it laughter. Thank you.
and also as someone who has lived both cloistered and public lives, what does solitude teach us that society often doesn't?
In solitude, we find everything. And society, and I want to caution how I say it because I don't want it to be dualistic. Humanity in setting up society is striving and quite effectively to offer context for our living here. So society can be a really good thing. It sets up stop signs so we don't hit another car. It sets up organizations so that we know how to interact with each other. So society is not a bad thing. But what happens in the mass consciousness with society and norms is there tends to be a valuing of the wrong things in the ineffective ways. It moves us away from keeping very close to what is essentially liberating, happy making, peace cultivating, and joy inspiring. Because it's like a snowball that creates, it's created as a snowball and then it rolls down a hill and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it creates a mind of its own where it can keep us away from ourselves. But solitude puts us into direct contact with ourselves. And it's with ourselves that all freedom happens. So, society in and of itself isn't limiting. It can be helpful so long as it doesn't become the master of our life experience. But unfortunately, collective consciousness tends to spiral, creating norms and values that pull us away from ourselves, displace. Like one example, I listened to podcasts here and there, um, and more than once I have heard podcasts about the work ethic in America, and there are a lot of values over, or there are a lot of values around working 70 to 80 hours a week. It's you're worthy. You show you're dedicated. You show up as a dependable employee, and there's created a value there that's completely displaced because then people feel guilty to take a day off, or they feel guilty to put their families first. So there's an example where society has cultivated a norm or a value, and it's probably true in all societies. I only know the US, where there are these displaced values that are based on something good, being faithful, being dependable, being a good team player, and it's completely taken out of context. And what we want to do is dismantle those so that nobody works 80 hours a week, unless there's a village fire that we all need to help put out, like.
That's so beautiful, and the I think this conversation is so beautiful. The way you answered everything, and thank you for sharing all your knowledge, all your experience. It's so beautiful. And if my listeners want to connect with you, then what's the best way?
I made it super easy, everybody. Just go to my website, kimberlybraun.com. There you can sign up for my newsletter, join my online community, buy my books, buy my CDs, attend a retreat, book me to come to your community. I will fly anywhere in the world to be of service. So if you're wanting somebody like me to be of service to your community, then just reach out to me. You can email me there. You can sign up for my socials. Super easy, kimberlybraun.com.
Yes, and I will make sure to attach all the details and links below so that the listeners can find them easily and get in touch with you. And this is a wonderful conversation with you because you are such a knowledgeable and powerful person yourself. And I think when you come, you just come with a serenity, a positive energy that just makes everyone very soothing. And thank you for guiding us back to the sacred simplicity of being who we are. And your journey is a mirror of what is possible when we choose love over fear, emergence over escape. And thank you for all of this. And to my listeners, your awakening doesn't need permission, it begins right here, in this breath. Keep remembering who you are and let your soul lead the way.